And Hitler's engineers were developing an even bigger tank. The largest tank ever designed. Decades later, model maker Holger Bull has discovered the blueprints for a Nazi monster tank in German archives. He takes a road trip to a tank expert to pose the question, could these Nazi heavy tanks have turned the tide of war? Peter Robbins holds a collection of tanks and armored vehicles from the 1970s.
And the field gun is tracked, and it weighs only 20 tons. And in the case of the German heavy tanks, what is it, 100 tons or something?
The team is heading to a site where Peter conducts exercises for the US Army. Today, they carry out a measuring experiment for the Nazi tank that would have been even more colossal than the Maus, the Land Cruiser P-1000, which Hitler himself codenamed the Rat.
I was able to purchase a couple of copies of drawings and photographs of these amazing, monstrous German tank designs. This is the tank called the Ratte, you know,
right.
Which was a 1,000-ton tank.
Yeah, look at this. You can see the size of man. What a huge monstrosity.
Here, take this, Steve,
okay.
And I'll hold it and take a walk. Bye.
The team has calculated the dimensions of the Ratte from the original images.
Come back, we'll do the other side. Left.
Left.
Straight across, I'll guide you over here.
Now, they mark out an outline to compare the size of the giant World War II tank to the modern
tank. To the
tank.
right a little bit, Steve. That's good.
Put side by side with a modern tank, the Rat would have been colossal. Weight, 1,000 tons, length, 114 feet, and battleship-type guns. How devastating would such an enormous tank have been in battle?
The Ratte tank had such a large diameter projectile that its destructive force would have been absolutely enormous. Many, many feet of concrete, tremendous blast, tremendous killing power. But its mobility was so limited, you can't go down roads with it, and you can't go over bridges with it. And it might be able to go through a river, but who knows if it had enough displacement, positive buoyancy to stay on the surface and get across the river without becoming a submarine. So I think in reality it was more of a dream than everything else.
Finally, Germany's Minister of Armament stopped the project because he deemed it ineffective at a time of disappearing resources. For Steve and Holger, the mystery remains to be solved. Did the Fritz X or any other of Hitler's secret weapons have the potential to change the course of war? A vast underground site, 340 feet below a hilltop, containing ammunition reserves, concrete gun shafts, and old railway tracks. A site reminiscent of a hideout created by the villains in a James Bond film. But this secret Nazi gun site was constructed in 1943 in northern France on Adolf Hitler's direct orders to fire a shower of projectiles over the English Channel towards London.
Hitler was able to draw sketches, and so he was also interested in drawing plans for bunkers, for example, but also for big battleships and for very heavy guns. So he was indeed doing some work by himself with his own pencil for these special weapons.
Based on the original Nazi construction plans, this CGI shows the advanced design of Hitler's gun site in northern France, never fully realized in wartime. The V3. V for Hitler's vengeance on London. Thin arrow-shaped projectiles were to be fired through a barrel whose projected length even surpassed Hitler's railway gun Dora. Propellant charges were to be ignited as the shell passed lateral chambers, boosting it to an incredibly high velocity. for a maximum bombing range of 100 miles. On August 12, 1944, the US launched a counter-operation off the English coast. Joseph Kennedy Jr., JFK's older brother, was deployed to arm a bomber that was then to be remote-controlled into Hitler's cannon site. But the mission went wrong. Before Kennedy could parachute to safety from the armed bomber, the explosives detonated. It was a tragic failure of US intelligence. Over 4 weeks before, a British bombing raid had already rendered the Nazi gun site useless. With their 6-ton tallboys, the Royal Air Force had cracked the 18-feet-thick concrete slab containing the gun openings. One of the early British bunker busters landed directly on a gun shaft, creating extensive damage below. Today, a plaque commemorates Joe Kennedy Jr.'s courageous mission. Now, Steve Weiper and Holger Bull transport the 2 replicas of the Nazi bomb Fritz X to Chino Airport in California. They will work with a company called Aerotrader, which owns original World War II bombers and has experienced test-dropping bombs from these planes. For Carl Scholl, who's been in the business of restoring World War II aircraft for over 30 years, the Fritz experiment will be a first.
Right now only weigh
Maybe 200.
200. We're going to have to ballast it to try to get closer to the real weight. Okay, good. So this is our baby, RB-25. We've actually used this thing in several movies. We've launched the airplane from a couple of aircraft carriers over the years, and now we'll get to drop a Fritz bomb. Yeah, that'll be different too. We've never done anything like that. We've dropped torpedoes and parachutes and parachute dummies and things like that.
But not German-guided bombs.
But no German-guided bombs, so that'll definitely be a first. Okay, well, we have a torpedo rack set up in the bomb bay, but I think with our configuration with your bomb, the span on it is too large, so we'll leave the bomb bay doors off, which we've already removed.
Yes.
And then we'll have to come up with a configuration to attach the bomb to our mechanism and then come up with a suitable release mechanism, which we can do.
The Aerotrader crew has to modify the bracket for the bomb. The replica Nazi bomb is much bigger than the torpedoes they dropped before. And they must determine how much the Fritz X should weigh and where it should be centered so that it safely leaves the airplane.
How critical is, like right now, because of this structure, it's off to the side a little bit. How critical do you think that is?
We must have both, because otherwise it could roll.
Okay. Yeah,
so we should cut that
yeah, we can cut
two times.
Cut in quarters.
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we can.
Put them on the sides.
Yeah. Put it up here.
Or put it up there. Yeah.
We're trying to get the center of gravity as close as we can to the not only the dynamic center of gravity of this device, but also the aerodynamic balance, so that it's nose heavy enough so that when it leaves the airplane, the nose falls away. If it's not enough nose heavy, then the aerodynamic surfaces could potentially make it fly, which would give it a lift when it left the airplane, which would definitely not be a good thing.
The mechanics team tries different options and adjusts the weight of the bomb with great care. Still, pilot Carl Scholl has safety concerns.
We need the nose of this thing 100 pounds heavy, so that it definitely pitches down, because I don't want this thing going trying to decide what it's going to do, because the center of gravity is neutral. I mean, it's definitely got to be nose heavy. Why don't we grab a handful of jump rotors or stators out there? Those things are pretty heavy. We bundle up 20 or 30 of those.
Let's have a look in here.
And bolt them in.
The debate about the bomb's ideal weight continues for 2 days.
Well, yeah, just the physics.
I want this thing to be nose
heavy. Well, we're making it nose heavy, but 100 pounds is based on where in the moment off the center line. So we can put 100 pounds right here. Well, it's not making the nose.
Let's put the lead on the way you were talking about doing that.
It's not making the nose.
See what that does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the feeling. Yeah, that's true. What do you think about it? I mean, directly, probably after.
So you've got another
Yeah, we're gonna add
50 more.
That's what we're doing. That's why we marked it that way.
Finally, pilot Carl Scholl is satisfied
That
with the
much more
results.
in it.
Yeah, I'd be happy.
Right about the same together.
The bomb will weigh close to 1,000 pounds.
I don't want this thing going through the air like this. I want it to definitely go down. That way we can have some control over where it lands. If it flies too much, then we don't know where it's going to go.
US Navy smoke flares are attached to the bomb's rear to better monitor the flight of the Fritz X.
Okay, Carl,
But a safety test must be conducted so the flares don't place the plane in danger.
Douse it now? Yeah, go ahead.
Will the real destructiveness of Hitler's secret weapon be revealed in the drop test scheduled in a few days? Chino Airport, California. In just 2 days' time, an experiment team will test drop a reconstructed Nazi bomb from a B-25 bomber onto a replicated battleship outline. With this experiment, the crew wants to determine the ballistics and destructive power of the Fritz X bomb. The testing site is a remote part of the Californian desert on the property of bomber pilot Carl Scholl.
Basically, this area, which is a quarter of a mile by half a mile, will be our drop zone. And what I'd like to do is set up the profile of the Roma, something like that, and be moving west to east, and pick a point where we think we're going to hit the battleship, and that'll be our release point.
And then by having the ground teams back here kind of in a safe zone, that will help protect everybody from getting hit.
Tony Ritzman, flying the B-25 for over 30 years now, points out the risks of the bomb drop.
Once it falls free from the airplane, we don't know if it's going to pitch up and down, if it's going to enter into a roll moment, or quite conceivably it could even pitch up and start tumbling. And so the first 2 or 3 seconds of release are going to be a little bit of a risky event as far as maybe the Fritz hitting us.
In fact, the real Fritz X was so fast that it would have reached supersonic sound. That's why they had these roundish tubes at the end of it, to prevent the supersonic sound speed,
We're in the testing phase. And if you'll remember, the Germans used up over 600 of these devices just learning how to drop them.
Yeah,
and we're going to do it.
Let's not think too much
with
about
2.
that. Yeah, that's true.
The team schedules a preliminary test drop of one of the replica Fritz X's for the next day. The German-American team has reconstructed the Nazi bomb in a remarkably short time. With the engines of the B-25 bomber running, they now want to eliminate the worst-case scenario, the replica losing parts due to the pressure of the bomber's airstream.
Stand by to drop. 3, 2, 1.
The modified release mechanism works perfectly.
Well, we didn't really test it in the airstream. All we tested was the vibration factor with the engines running, but everything looked plenty stable, so I think we're good to go.
But the Fritz X was not the only secret weapon in Hitler's arsenal. Across the ocean in Germany, a seemingly innocuous peninsula in the Baltic Sea, close to the Polish border. In Nazi Germany, the area of Peenemünde used to be Hitler's high-tech rocket center. Secret operations started in 1936, and later rocket launching sites extended to a remote island off the coast. It was here that the world's first ballistic missile took off. Hitler's vengeance weapon, the V2. In 1944, the missile became the first man-made object to reach the border of space in its trajectory. Today, special permission is needed to enter the restricted area containing the ruins of Hitler's Cape Canaveral. The legendary Peenemünde also gave birth to another advanced Nazi rocket, the Wasserfall. A single rocket was designed to bring down a whole fleet of enemy aircraft. The plan was for the warhead to detonate inside of a bomber formation, and its special liquid explosive would create a devastating blast area.
The Wasserfall was really the first potentially effective surface-to-air missile that could have been widely used and very effective against bomber fleets. It really, of all the German weapons at the time, probably could have changed the course of the war in the West, possibly even a negotiated or a termed surrender.
But Hitler regarded defensive weapons like the Wasserfall as defeatist. He didn't see the point. Instead, he promoted the Vengeance and offensive weapons up until the very end of the war, still dreaming of final victory. Now, over 6 decades after the first and most fatal missions of the Fritz X, the replicas of the Nazi bomb are ready for a bold test drop in a remote desert site. In a remote part of the Californian desert in a former military testing zone. A daring World War II experiment is about to begin. A test drop of 2 replica Nazi bombs onto a battleship outline marked as a target area in the sand. This outline is a copy of the shape of the Italian battleship Roma. The Roma and the cruiser USS Savannah were both hit in the Mediterranean in September 1943 by the radio-guided bomb Fritz X. Now the drop experiment wants to solve the mystery. Did the Savannah survive because the Fritz bomb was technically imperfect? Or was the German bomb too powerful for its time, ripping all the way through the battleships before having time to fully detonate? To replicate the conditions of 1943, the outline in the desert must be over 780 feet long and over 100 feet wide.
Yeah, some more, Pete.
Naval historian Steve Wiper confirms that the target outline is correct.
So we're pretty close, right?
Yeah, no, you guys have a good layout. There's a couple of minor adjustments, but other than that, it looks really good.
Yeah, tire. Go ahead and put them down. Here? Yeah.
The outline work on the ground is a race against time. The bomber pilots are already on their way from their Chino hangar in the B-25 for a first scouting mission. The battleship outline has to be ready so that the pilots can gather important targeting data for the bomb drop scheduled for the next day. And the ground team finishes just in time. As the World War II bomber lands on the desert airfield, model maker Holger Bull arrives with a special payload of the Fritz X bomb replicas. The next day will be the moment of truth, D-Day for the Fritz X. Will the experiment be successful?